Hey everyone, welcome to Rebuilding a Kick-Ass Life, which I've been trying to do for the last 10 years. I started this journey after my second divorce, and at that time it was sort of a time in my life where I was broke and broken, and I set out on this journey of just really self-discovery and self-love, and have found that in the last 10 years being on my own, I have been probably the happiest and the most at peace that I have been in my entire life. And I've done some videos in the last little while that have sparked some controversy, and I just sort of want to set the record straight about my story. Also, just before I get into it, a lot of you were asking, where can you find my book? So I have a website, mamamoynes.com. You can order it there. There's also a link, I think, on this YouTube at the bottom. I'm new to YouTube, so I don't even really know how it works. But I think there's a link to my website, and you can order the book there. Also, I'm not on here that much, so if you want more, just like 5-minute inspirational videos or encouraging videos or motivational, then follow me on Instagram, Emily Moynes. I also have my staging page, which is M's Staging House. And house is spelled H-A-U-S. Apparently it's German. I couldn't get house because it's already taken, so it's M's Staging House. Okay, got that out of the way. Okay, let me just get right into it. So I'm going to be reading a comment that I received a couple of days ago. And thank you for sending that comment, because I feel like if you're thinking that, then there's probably a lot of other people thinking that as well. And I certainly don't want to be coming on here and misleading you or making you think that there's just no way in hell you could have done that. So I'm going to, for the new followers on here, I'm just going to, and if you've already heard the story, by all means, just go ahead, fast forward, or just don't have to watch the video, but I'll give you just a really quick synopsis of the last 10 years since I started my journey of rebuilding my kick-ass life. So I've been married twice. My first marriage took place when I was 22. He was 24. We had all three of our kids by the time I was 29. And unfortunately, as I've said before, that marriage we just grew apart. It did not work. But also now in hindsight, I know that that marriage could have been salvaged, which I've said a million times before. It's a really hard pill to swallow now looking back. But at the same time, I also feel like I'm sort of where I need to be, and I believe he's where he needs to be, and we have co-parented well. We actually, during our divorce, we decided to sell a matrimonial home, and then both of us moved around the corner from each other into different homes so that the kids would have access to both parents at all times, which happened quite often. They would call me up and go, "Hey mom, my dad's making pork chops again. What are you making?" So it was really great, and it worked for us, and we still co-parent to this day. So I'm 59, I'm 58. I'm gonna be 59 in another 5 months. So I'm approaching 60, and I remarried in my 40s, and then I actually met him. We were together for 7 years before we got married, so I met him in my mid 30s, and then I divorced at 50. So we were together for a total of about 15 years. That marriage was the one that sparked my whole awakening. Who am I? How did I get here? What is going on with me? How did I become so lost, so broke, so broken, so everything? And it was a relationship that was just the longest. I refer to it in my book as the longest emotional roller coaster ride of my life. And I had everything, yet I had nothing. And so, which leads me to the comment that I received, because I did a video about how during that course of that marriage, I'm going to say we, but it really wasn't we, it was he, because that's how I felt, and that's how, he really did see it as well. Accumulated a lot of stuff and a lot of financial wealth. When I met him, he was renting a room in someone's basement, and I had my own house. And so just to go back, the comment was, how are you able to travel so much? Actually, let me just read it to you because before I met him, keep in mind, before I met him, I had always worked. So I was working full time for L'Oreal, had been there for 20 years. I only left L'Oreal well into my second marriage. So I have always had my own money and had a really, good job that I actually really thought was cool. Our head offices were like in Paris. And so I was always very resourceful. I'm an immigrant of Portugal, came here with my parents. And my parents they're blue collar workers, never spoke English. And so I had to be really resourceful. I didn't have the guidance. I didn't have parents that were able to help me with picking my colleges or helping me with homework. We were really sort of left to our own devices, which had served us well because we learned how to become very resourceful, me and my sisters. And so I had always been pretty self-sufficient. And then I went into this relationship where I stopped working, mistake number one, and had lost control of the finances, didn't really know what was coming in, what was going out. I didn't have access to bank accounts. And it was it's what started the whole spiral of me just going, what the fuck am I doing? Like, what am I doing? It was very toxic, very abusive. Anyway, it's all in my book. But I did have this comment, so I just want to explain this. And again, I don't know if I've mentioned it, but thank you for leaving this comment, because I feel like if you're feeling this way, then there's probably a lot of other people thinking this as well. So somebody left me a comment saying, I will add, for someone who is extremely middle class, this advice feels hard to take from someone coming from privilege. When you say something like being able to afford only a very modest home. This is something I will likely never have as someone who has been married for over 24 years and mostly home with my kids. I have nothing. Sure, marital assets, but it will come out to very little at the end of my marriage. And then you are semi-trapped. So I will continue to listen, but you slightly lost me with all the homes, jewelry, vacations, designer stuff, cars, etc. There's no way you've had to completely rely on yourself now. Not true, I have, and I'll explain that. There's no way you've had to completely rely on yourself now. No shade, no hate on that, just a different world someone like me will never experience or understand. Okay, you guys. So yes, I went from a very middle-class life, taking care of myself and my kids. My first marriage, I did not want to take a lot of spousal support from him, and I was doing okay. I had, like I said, I worked for L'Oreal. I was making a good income. Back then too, it was not like it is today. You know, my house was $160,000 in 1995, I think I bought that house. I can't remember, 1997. Anyway, so it was $160,000. That house today is probably over $1 million. So back then, I didn't want to take a lot of support from my husband, the father of my children, because I did want my children to be able to have a life with their dad, that when they go over, they're not subjected to living in a basement apartment. And so we had 50-50 custody, so it was week on, week off. And I think I was like $300 a month I was taking from him as support, spousal support, because he did make more than me. And then when I remarried the second time, I cut off that support from my husband, the father of the kids, because I basically thought, okay, my needs are being taken care of now. And this was well into the marriage, because when I first met my second husband, he didn't have any money. And so he was living in, like I said, a room in somebody's basement. And so the wealth came well into our relationship, but it was never mine. So I never felt like it was mine. I never had access or free range to like any of the money or anything like that. And so the biggest mistake I made was leaving my job into that marriage, because then I felt like I was stuck. I didn't have any money. I had no way to support myself. I was in a, really toxic relationship, and I felt like I am never going to make it on my own. But that came from a long time of being married, and then that just being being inundated with those thoughts, because you get to a point where you start to lose your self-worth or self-value, or start to really second guess yourself. So at 50, when things were really getting difficult for me, is when I left, and I had just a real aha moment that actually came through my daughter, to be honest, that made me take that leap of faith to, I just got to the point where I was like, I would rather live under a bridge right now than be subjected to being in this relationship anymore where I have absolutely zero self-esteem. And I'm sad every day and I'm crying every night. And it was just a horrible situation. So when I left, make a long story short, I walked away from all of the cars and the vacation properties. So for a period of time, I did, yes, get to enjoy the stuff, but then I didn't leave with any of that. I left with my car, which is now 12 years old, and I left with just enough money to buy a home. Now, I realize I am very fortunate that I can even buy a home. I am very, very lucky that I even had enough to do that. But then after that, I put all the money that I got into my home. I needed to move from where I was living before. I needed to move into a different city because I could only afford something that was like a third of the price that the house I was living in before, and I couldn't really afford anything like that in the city or in the area that we were living in. So I had to move to another city, which I was fine with. In fact, I remember my ex-husband referred to it as the ghetto. Yeah, she's living in the ghetto. Anyway, it's not the ghetto. I love my home, and I didn't really care because I knew that leaving this marriage came with sacrifices and compromises, and it was a choice. It became like, what do you want more? Well, like, what do you want more? Do you want the stuff? Do you want the lifestyle? Or do you want the peace? Do you want to live life on your own terms? And do you want to stop walking in eggshells? What do you want more? So I didn't care that it was perceived as the ghetto, which it's not. It's just a lot different than where I came from. And so when I left, I put all the money into the home because I didn't want to have a mortgage, and I wanted to really make my bills as minimal as possible because I also didn't have a job. So I left with no income, no spousal support, and no money. So I had started a business. I had a friend who was a realtor, and she actually wanted me to take a real estate course, but I didn't have time to take a real estate course. I needed to work. I needed to pay my bills. And so I need to pay my mortgage and my insurance and all that stuff. And I really, honestly, you guys, had no way, like I had no money coming in. So I said, I don't have time to be a real estate agent. In hindsight, I probably should have done that somehow and figured it out because that's where the money was. But I had always really been good at like interior decor, and I'd come from a background of like fashion and beauty, and they sort of go hand in hand. I know I'm speaking really quickly. I'm sorry. Oh my God, my first language is Portuguese and I tend to speak quickly. Anyway, stay with me. So I didn't want to be a real estate agent, but we entertained the thought of me becoming her stager, her home stager. She was a very prominent real estate agent, and that's what I've been doing for the last 9 years. So at the time, I asked a girlfriend if she wanted to start a business with me, and fortunately, that business, it was successful. I started that business, and then I also started another business with 2 other partners, completely unrelated. It was in the fitness world, which I have since sold. I sold it during COVID and made a nice little profit because that business did really well as well. Now, I worked, you guys, 18-hour days for the first 2 years. I didn't date. I still don't really date. I didn't date. I didn't go out. I didn't do anything fun. I was on a complete buying freeze. I didn't buy anything unless it was like a real need. I cut off everything that I didn't need. Like I got rid of my landline. I got rid of cable. I got rid of subscriptions to I just got rid of everything. I sold a lot of my personal things that I had accumulated during that marriage. Sold the Rolexes and sold just like stupid purchases. Like, I don't know. And I shouldn't say that because if you guys have money and you're buying your Pradas and your Hermes and Gucci and Louis Vuitton, then great. But I'm in a position now where I no longer feel the need to buy those things to fill me up, to make me feel like I am worthy. And so I sold a lot of that stuff. And initially in the beginning, it was difficult and it was hard. I was just making ends meet. But I did it. And no, I didn't have any help. I didn't have any support. I didn't have any other financial aid. I had to figure it out, and I had to work, and I had to compromise, and I had to sacrifice. And that is what I did. I even had to, I remember I used to shop at Whole Foods. I stopped shopping there and started shopping at No Frills and Food Basics and Freshco. So if you're from Canada, those are all sort of the lower end grocery stores. There's just so many things that I did that I needed to just sort of shake myself into reality. And if I really wanted to start this life of self-discovery and self-love, and on this path of just really becoming authentically who I am. I come from a village in Portugal, you guys. We had no running water and no heat, no electricity when I left that country at 8 years old. My grandparents do now, well, they've passed. But at the time, that's where I came from. And so I just went back to my roots. I mean, it really is that simple. I just went back to my roots and to this very day, my happy place is going back to Portugal. And when I go back to Portugal, I don't travel to like the Algarve, the south of Portugal with all the beaches. I go to the north of Portugal where it is my home, and it is very, very primitive. Like there's still donkeys in the street and chickens and cows, and it's very, very primitive. It's in the mountains, and that's where I go for solace and for peace, and it is my happy place. Which brings me to another point. Another comment was, how are you able to travel so much if you, like in this world and in this economy, if you're saying that you're now pretty like middle class? I think that middle class, to be honest, is almost going by the wayside. I really do. But and to the person who left me the first comment, I hear you. The feeling of being stuck is scary, and it is daunting, and it is overwhelming, and it's fear. Fear makes you feel stuck and makes you feel complacent. And I get the fear, because the devil that you know is not as bad as the devil that you don't, or whatever that saying is. So I get it. I really do. And I feel bad for women that are in situations that they have dedicated their lives to raising their children, and their husbands have been the breadwinners and control the money. And I know that there's a lot of situations like that, because I get comments all the time. And that is, you know, if there's one lesson that I can teach my daughter, it is that never, ever, ever become financially dependent on a man. Because once you do that, you are stuck. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't stay home with your children. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that it's almost like we need to be smarter about taking that step, or really know who we're with, or really, I don't know, like put something in place before you decide to stay home and not bring in the money or not control the money, because it does leave you in a position where you feel stuck. Okay, back to the traveling. How are you able to travel so much? So I have one son who is a commercial pilot. And so because of that, I get a lot of free perks. In some cases, I get a lot of free flights. Now, at almost 60, I don't spend my money on stuff. I don't spend my money on big ticket items. I don't feel the need to buy the latest and the greatest of anything. All my money goes towards traveling and just collecting experiences. That is just what I do. I also have a girlfriend that has been on her own for quite a long time, who has really the same mindset as I do. And so I travel a lot with her. So because of my son being the commercial pilot, that's one thing. The other thing is I have another son. He's my oldest. He's 34, who started his own company, the SOSA, Save Our Species Alliance. And that's his website. You can find him on Instagram. He was on that little reality show, The Bachelor. And because of that, he has a huge platform, and his passion has always been saving the world, saving our planet, and endangered species. Since he was like a little kid, he's always been all about our wildlife. Anyway, make a long story short, he started this company where he works a lot with conservation organizations all over the world. And he's partnered up with them, and he runs excursions to these places, remote and very like not the norm that you would travel to. And it's really to bring awareness and education to our endangered species. like the rhino, for example, which is one of his favorite animals. So because he went and was volunteering with the rhinos way before he went on The Bachelor, and just became obsessed and in love with working in the orphanage where the baby rhinos had been orphaned because their moms had been poached. And so the rhino is an endangered species. And so that's why I've been able to travel to Africa, because he has partnered up with the Global Conservation Force. And so I've been able to travel to Africa and Madagascar and Borneo and Malaysia and Singapore and all these really great places because of my other son, who has partnered with these organizations. And either I get a really good deal on those trips, or oftentimes, because he's the biggest sweetheart on the freaking planet, like for Christmas, I just got a trip to Africa. Which I'm going to be going in June with my girlfriend. So my girlfriend, who has also done well for herself, but again is self-employed and started her own business after her divorce over 15 years ago, and worked her freaking ass off and is doing well. And so she follows him, and she's actually the one that's been encouraging me, like, okay, let's do this, let's do this. She wanted to go to Alaska with the bears. No, I would love to go to Alaska, but I'm scared to death of bears. And I'm not going to go shark diving either. He does that a lot. But I do a lot of the, like we were in Borneo, and that was all about the orangutans, which was really, really cool. They're endangered. And the promiscuous monkeys. No, the monkeys with the really, really long noses. I can't remember. Anyway, I'm digressing. But that is why I am able to travel. Primarily because of my boys, who are very kind and very generous, but also because all the money that I make now goes towards me being able to collect experiences and memories rather than spending it on stuff. And you know, I was watching the fires in LA, and if any of you are from LA, I feel for you. It is just such a horrible, horrendous thing to experience. But boy, nothing puts in perspective more than what is happening with those fires. All that stuff, gone, ashes. It means nothing. It's stuff. It's just stuff that can come and go. But experiences and memories and cultivating friendships and community. Because when I go on these trips with my son, what I really take away from that is the community that he's building with these like-minded people that all show up, and they're strangers when they come in and are best friends when they leave, because they've just spent a week together bonding over like-minded causes. And so I don't spend my money anymore on dumb shit. I really don't. And that is why I am able to travel as much as I do, and I am very fortunate. I am very, very fortunate. I don't take 1 second for granted. The other comment about there's no way you got through this with no help. I did, and listen, it was not easy. It was not easy. Many nights I would cry myself to sleep because I thought, I can't do this. Like, why did I leave? Oh my God, I should have just stayed. At least financial stress was not something that I had to deal with, because although I didn't have access to the money, my needs were taken care of. I had food on the table, I had a roof over my head, so I didn't have to worry about that. And so I'm here to tell you that 9 years later, it's the best decision I ever made. And it's not easy, but you have to decide, do I want easy or do I want peace? Anyway, I hope that helps. Keep those comments coming, you guys. I see in the comment section that a lot of you are liking each other's comments or responding to each other. And this is what I love about this channel. It's a community of, again, of like-minded people. And I think most of you are women. And that I love to see women supporting women. And I love to see women building each other up. I really do. And I feel like that's what we have here. So that's it. Gotta go. It is actually it's 6:42 in the morning. See what I'm saying? It's 6:42 in the morning. I've been showered. I'm up. My makeup is done, sort of. My hair was so gray, you guys. You know what I did though? I don't know if you can see. Oh, so gray. I took eyeshadow, brown eyeshadow, and just dabbed it over the gray, and oh, it worked. Can't even tell. Anyway, Keep rebuilding your kick-ass lives, and I will see you here again, probably. I don't know. I'll try and get another video out the next few days. Thanks.